Hello, hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. I would say this morning, but it's noon here on the East Coast. I am Robyn Duda, co-founder and CEO of RacquetX. I can't speak for everyone, but it is an absolutely gorgeous day here where I'm based in Georgia, and I know it's an even more beautiful day in Miami Beach. A little birdie told me that March 22nd to the 24th is going to be especially lovely weather in Miami Beach because that's right, those are the dates for RacquetX this year. We're less than a month out, and if you are new to the RacquetX family, welcome, welcome, and we hope to see you in Miami. We are the home court for racket sports, uniting all racket sports under one roof to learn, discover, and play. Whether you're a player or a maker, an investor or a coach, a kid or a pro, there is something for you during this 3-day action-packed festival. TheRacketX.com for more information. That's that's racket with a QU, CQU, not a CK. Follow, like, join the chatter on all your favorite socials. Today, I am very, very excited to bring this group together to discuss what, is a fairly hot topic right now and something I think is very important: third places. If you aren't familiar, the third place is a space we've traditionally reserved for community building, a religiously affiliated place like a church, a library, a gym. It's not your home, it's not your office or your workplace, it's a third place. The third place is where you engage with others. And with loneliness becoming an epidemic and mental health concerns on the rise, there is a need to re-engage and rethink about this third place. Why should we in racket sports care, right? Why are we all here? Well, clubs can and should be one of the strongest third places out there. Besides the community focused feel that these sports actually provide, not to mention the physical benefits around longevity we hear every day in the media, a good club offering provides many unique connection points. This also, when done well, can provide increased revenue opportunities, which I know many of you in the club space would love to hear about. And from me, I'd love to introduce you to our esteemed group of folks today. We have moderator Simon Gale, Senior Director of Racket Sports Development at the USTA. Jesica Talbert, co-founder and CEO at Park Padel out on the West Coast in San Francisco. Brad Tuckman, CEO and co-founder at The Fort. And Pat Shields, president at Fromuth and Midwest Racket Sports. Why don't you each introduce yourselves quickly? And Simon, you can take it away, but why don't we start with you and you could start to do your thing as a moderator.
Thanks, Robyn. Thanks for the introduction. And I think it's a great topic, something I'm super passionate about. But more importantly, we've got three great panelists or guests today who bring a diversity of thought with very different backgrounds that will, I'm sure, impart a lot of great knowledge to our listeners. So excited to get this started. I will turn it over to Jesica to introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Simon. Appreciate that. Thank you, Robyn, for having all of us. My name is Jesica Talbert. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Park Padel. We operate 3 clubs, paddle clubs in Northern California. Prior to racket sports, my training is in user research and studying user behavior. I'm excited to bring some of that conversation to you today as I talk about why racket sports are so important as third spaces. Brad?
Oh, hey, sorry about that. I'm Brad Tuckman. I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO of The Fort down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Previous to this, I was in marketing world, eventually found my way to the pickleball world during COVID, like many people did. Fast forward 4 years, I'm standing in the facility today, so pretty excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
And I'm Pat Shields Jr. You may recognize the name because my father is also Pat Shields and has been in the tennis industry for 35 years. But I'm the president of Fromuth and Midwest Racket Sports, so 2 companies that sell tennis goods to clubs and end consumers all over the country. And I have a unique perspective with the third place because I've been to a lot of third places because we sell to a lot of clubs. So I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Robyn.
All right, thanks, Pat. And Brad, Jesica, let's get started. So what I wanted to try to do to start with is set the stage a little bit. I just got back from 2 weeks in Australia visiting about 50 different venues that 6 of the top operators in Australia are in charge of. And it was really interesting when Robyn approached me about talking about this topic, because one of the core themes that came out of visiting all these clubs was the consistency of the owners and operators, why they started these businesses. And most of us who are in the tennis or rackets business, we would love it to be because tennis and rackets make us millionaires. But in general, there's a passion that's deep rooted in all these owners and operators that have made them invest in this space. And it's fascinating to listen to everyone's story, as diverse as they are. And I think this group brings the same quality, this ability to impact people's lives and create senses of community and senses of belonging to their facilities was at the core of all of these providers. So I'm excited to hear the three of you in kind of impressions or interpretations of what you see here in the States. So I'm going to kick it off with a question for Brad. Brad, what was your driving force behind the decision to invest in a racket sports facility, and what kind of inspired you to go down this path?
You did. Great. Yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah, so I was very fortunate enough to find pickleball to fill my time during COVID. My father's played for over 15 years. I made fun of him for 11 of them, and then realized that I loved the sport once I started meeting the community and getting friends. All I did was work my entire career. So for me, I fell in love with the sport because I got active and I immediately had a social network. That enabled me then to say, all right, what's next? And I got tired of waiting on the courts. And for me, that was a driving force to say, all right, what can I do to create a business model that would work, at the same time provide a place where people can actually socialize and be in this community together that I fell in love with. So that was the root of it for me from the start. Of course, at that point, you have to find the land, you have to build a business model, you have to raise the money. It's a long process. That was about 4 years ago. We were very fortunate enough to get a partnership with our city. So we have a public-private partnership, which layers in a whole other layer on this to make sure we're community engaging. And it takes quite a bit of time, but we got here where we're today. But the driving force for me beginning to do this was truly the community, which is great when we're talking today about this third place, because for me, this third place has kind of become my first place. And I'm hoping for some people it becomes their first and second place too.
And so, Jesica, you've opened or operate 3 facilities in San Francisco, and are all Padel facilities, as I understand. So what was your motivation? What influenced you to go down this path?
It's funny, people ask us all the time, like, why did you decide to bring this here? There was no Padel here before. Are you really good at the sport? And my answer was actually no, because I had nowhere to play. Like, you can't play Padel if you don't have anywhere to practice. But we were traveling in Europe and saw these courts and these clubs all over the place doing something really, really special. Like, it wasn't just people going playing and like exercising. It was after the fact, hanging out, having a beer, and discussing the game. And that was the kind of magic. A lot of my training is in like user research, studying about how do you create really great products. And what I saw there was this really great product. It was something that it was easy for people to onboard to, really high ceiling, so you could just play for years and still not be as good as you want to be, but have fun each time you came back. So we actually decided to go to Spain for a week, learn how to play, and and then study a bunch of clubs there. And by the end of that trip, we were sold. Then it was come back to the US and try to convince people to back us for a sport they'd never heard of.
And Pat, as you said in the intro, you've visited a lot of clubs. So you may not be an owner-operator, but you've seen a lot of good and what's out there. So any thoughts around kind of why people do what they do?
To what Jesica and Brad were saying about building communities, I think when you walk into a good racket sports facility, it's like in the first 5 minutes, if there's a strong community there. You can feel it in the energy from the professionals, whether it's the front desk or the teaching pro on the court, or just seeing those groups of people walk off the court, whatever sport it may be. And you feel like, all right, that's a friend group. They're united by tennis or pickleball or paddle. And they all met here probably. They all come here on a weekly basis, and they hang out and have a beer afterwards, like Jessica was saying. And I feel like you can walk into these facilities and like you feel that right away. And that's what makes racket sports something we all love, and why you're creating these small third place communities.
So it feels like beer is involved and central to the success of all these operations. That's three with the same answers, but kind of goes hand in hand with our racket sports industry. Jessica, you alluded to it in the opening a little bit, or your opening answer there, about your background, and I think you will be very highly sought after in our industry with your expertise in having studied human behavior and the motivation why people kind of choose how or where they want to spend their money and their spare time. So from what you've seen, what physical, or from your expertise, what physical or emotional elements make a racket club feel like it's that home away from home, or starts to become this third place?
Yeah, definitely. When I think about this term, the third place, it's actually coined in 1989 by Ray Oldenburg in his book, The Great Good Place. And he was talking about cafes, bars, churches, and like this, and now sports clubs, and the role they play in society. And like the central piece of that is a place where people can exchange ideas and have a good time. Like that positive, happy time is really important. It's also a good time without the entanglement of too much familiarity. There's people that you know there, you meet there, but you're there for like a distinct period of time where you can have fun. You might also get a little upset. You might not have played as well as you want to. There's some of that, those emotions that happen too. So in thinking about that, it's when we're creating these spaces, it's not just important about the time they spend on the court, but especially off the court too. So when I think about those emotional elements for making it a home away from home, I kind of think of our clubs like throwing a dinner party. Is the lighting good? Do people feel like they look good there? Do they have somewhere to sit that's easily accessible? Like a practical example is we had originally put our lounge a little bit farther away from our two main courts, and it wasn't getting used. We quickly realized that like people do want to stay afterwards and talk and discuss their shots and see what they did. But the farther that they have to walk, the more of like the magic is lost from the experience they just created. So then move the tables right in between the courts so they can sit there. They can start to watch whoever's playing next. We moved the keg in between the two courts also. It is a central piece. And then you're facilitating like very easy discussion. People are able to not only talk about the game that they just had, but when can they play next? Which then starts to get into like their personal lives and who they are. So there were just things like that where you're just observing how people play, how people want to spend their time afterwards, and then adjusting the space to fit what they're trying to do.
So Brad, you've just opened a place recently. What have you seen so far, and how are you approaching this at your facilities?
So it's funny you say that. We just met about a half hour before this meeting here with our umbrella company, because we've been studying where people actually congregate. And we're making some early assumptions because we are still the courts. Our bar opens in 2 weeks. Our restaurant opens in another month and a half. Our music gets installed in about a week. Our cameras in all the courts are about 2 weeks away. So what I've learned is we were able to get to 600 members in about 5 weeks without all the other stuff. But everybody's asking us, when's the bar opening? When are we going to do more programming? When are we going to have events? When are we going to have mixers? People aren't asking about pickleball. They're asking about all the other things we are going to do. So our focus right now is engaging the community. And some of that's, I call it hand-to-hand combat, right? People really need to be met. They got to be touched. They want to be talked to. And what we've done is we've doubled down on all of our staff in our pro shop, which is our main entry point, to make sure everybody's welcome. Everybody's names are learned. At the same time, we've learned there's an education process. People are used to going to parks to play pickleball, but when they come into a club now, they have to download an app. They have to have a QR code scan. There's rules in place. How do you communicate with people about rules? We have learned so much, but what I've found is, you treat people with respect and kindness, and you give them this sense of feeling that this is their other home or their third place, that they will have that respect for you as well. So it's amazing, you know, and again, in just 5 weeks, we can make some determinations of where people are going to, you know, like you were saying a minute ago, where do you put the kegs, right? Or how do you move the tables together? But where I would have put some sunshades, you know, 4 months ago before we were done, is a different location than I would put them today. So, because people are congregating in different areas. Now, don't get me wrong, that's going to change again, I'm sure, once the bar's open, once the restaurant's open, once the music's playing. But what we've learned is we have to adapt. So what I would have put in permanent shade structures before, I'm actually putting them in as movable now. So we can change with the times. So I think, you know, similar to what Jessica was saying, is we have to be in tune with what our members are asking for before they ask for them, to make sure that we're understanding that we have to respect them to know what they want, and at the same time you kind of have to lead the horse to water at times and hope they drink, but they may not. So you have to adapt very quickly. So that's what we're trying to adapt as fast as we could in just 5 weeks.
I'm glad you said that, Brad. One of my other thoughts was going to be like, don't be afraid to move furniture. That's okay.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's interesting, as I listen to you guys, I hear the words adapt, feedback, understand, which kind of leads to my next question for you, Pat, is in order to do that, it's not just through surveys. A lot of it is human interaction from the owners, operators, and those who are making decisions. So, Pat, you visited a lot of clubs, and we start to talk about the importance of staff and how they contribute to this third place. But also, I'm sure people like Jesica and Brad are trying to seek feedback from their staff that customers have given them. So how do the staff roles contribute to creating this third place environment, and how important is their presentation and that sense of leadership being present?
Yeah, and we know this from the few pro shops that we run in facilities like yours, Simon. The members want to walk in and they want to say, "Hey, Sean, what's up? How you doing? How's your week going?" And they want to do that every week, and they want to feel like a regular, and they want to build relationships with the staff there. And so that's a two-way street, right? The member wants that, but then you got to make sure that your staff, whether it's customer service, whether it's your racket stringers, whether it's the front desk person, they know to be personable and to look people in the eye and ask them the basic questions that I feel like I'm teaching my 5-year-old right now. But it's important to do those basic things to develop the relationships. And over time, you really feel like you know that person. And then it's amazing how the consistency and the repetitiveness of week over week, you build those relationships, and the members really feel like they're welcome there. And so I think that's where it really depends.
So Brad and Jesica, as owners and operators, how are you developing your staff? You can't do it all on your own. How are you developing your people or your team to help create this environment and seek feedback and all that it takes to create this sense of belonging for your members?
Jessica, you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I'll go quickly. We think a lot about like empowerment for our employees, like really distinct parts of our community, but also like owners in their own right. Like Pat said, they're like the first people that our customers see when they walk in. They're like the frequent touch points. So not only do I like empower them to like make decisions for the club and for our customers, but I also highly encourage them to play with our customers. Padel, you need 4 people to play. It's always the problem here. And so we try to make sure that our staff always feels like if you want to set up a match during your shift even, which may not be popular amongst other people, we're totally okay with that. This allows them to not only connect with the sport and what we're trying to do with this movement of getting more people, but also create memories with our customers, not just like touch points, but actual time that they've spent together. And it helps them enjoy their job a little bit more too. Oh, maybe mute for
Brad, I think you're muted.
Yeah, I'm unmuted now. Thank you. I could be muted more often, but anyway. So, so for me, it's about having the right people in the right seats. We realize are amazing communicating with the members, and we've had people who are amazing communicating with members on courts. It's very different to communicate with someone and welcome them into the building, to remember their names, to be able to remember what they were there doing last time, to also talk about the new product that may have come in the shop because you know that person loves paddles. So it's really refining how we communicate, the messages we use, the words we use, and that matters to all of that. So for us, I think I have about 25 employees here now. And it's about making sure that they actually can answer the questions, because things are changing so quickly, and the frustrations that people have, employees and customers, of not having all the information. So we're trying to empower our team to have the answers. And we look at them as almost like as an internal client. So we have to message to them well enough so they can actually communicate with our members well enough. So it's basic blocking and tackling from a business standpoint and communication, but it's literally members want to feel at home here, and it's up to us to make them feel at home.
So we're talking about this third place and this sense of home, but as newer operators and owners, what are some of the pain points or learnings that you could share with the audience who are considering opening facility? It's hot property right now, especially in the Padel and pickleball space, with new people investing, and there's a lot going on out there. It sounds easy just to build a great facility and put the furniture and the all-important keg in the right spot, but there's a lot more to it. So Brad, maybe you could start with some of your learnings so far in trying to create this sense of home for people at your facility.
That'd be great. So I'm going to draw an analogy. Before my wife and I had our daughter, we put a rug in the room, and we thought that our daughter would literally play on that rug always. We had no idea that my daughter would never sit on the rug. She'd be all around the whole house. And my parents laughed at me. I had no idea what I was getting into. So when I think about the pickleball club, what I thought everybody would be excited about, or I thought maybe something we have to push, I was completely wrong again. So what I found is you have to be willing to adapt, because you've been living in this dream trying to build this facility for however many years. And when you open, you realize you don't know everything. Even though when you open one facility, you open a second facility, I can tell you it's different in a different market again. So I think the customers or the members are very different, I'd say, from club to club, from a nuance standpoint. But for instance, what app are you going to use? How are you going to log people in? What are you going to do on an hourly basis, because you have your runs at certain times of the day? So suddenly you have to triple staff your entry, but then they have nothing to do an hour later. And then you start trying to understand, all right, do people shop before they come? No, they shop after they leave usually, or when they leave. So you start looking at staff utilization. You learn about what clinics people may want, what lessons they want. A problem we have is just getting people to turn on their notifications in their app. So they automatically shut off all their notifications, and you can't let them know it's about to rain. You can't let them know you have a money ball tonight. You can't. So it's everything you think people would do, they're going to do something a little different. So for me, I was so focused for years trying to get this place open. I was just so focused on everything to make sure it was absolutely perfect. Great. The facility's now open. The effort, I want to let everybody know, the effort to, once you open, is exponentially harder than it was just to get it open in the first place. So I'm sure Jessica can say, when you first opened, you thought it would be something, and it's a little bit different, right? And I love it. It's a giant puzzle that we put together every day, and we're trying to figure out hour by hour. It's different. The morning is very different than the evening, and of course, all clubs, we all want to fill that 12 noon hour, and that comes with food, that comes with beverage, that comes with programming, that comes with clinics. For us, we have a whole restaurant and a lake and a beach, and we're hoping that brings the tourists in during those hours. And I say hoping because it's opening in about 4 weeks. So every place is different. If I had a 9-court club indoors somewhere, I would probably have similar issues. Checking people in at the busy hours, checking them out. Are your time slots full? So I think that's a very short answer, even though it's long.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. For all of those points, Brad. There's a lot of pain in this. There's a lot of joy, but there's so much pain, and you have to be able to really roll with the punches. And I promise you, as long as you stick it out, you'll just get stronger. So don't worry about that. The pain is gain. But maybe I'll offer a very specific pain point and something that people might be able to use later. We put lots of clinics on our schedule because we know people need to learn. They need to learn at different levels, etc. And we were seeing varying attendance in these. Sometimes they would be full, sometimes they wouldn't be. So this is where we all put our user research hats back on just to figure out why. What were people saying when they got off the court? Everybody, as soon as they leave the clinic, is like, yeah, I had a great time. And then they're not coming back. What's the why behind that? By studying them a little bit more, you start to see is that like people wanted to play with the same people in the clinic setting. So it was not necessarily just about like, I want to go and work on the double walls. Cause like at the end of our clinics, we usually have some gameplay, but I want to feel like I'm progressing with similar people to my level so that we can join the next tournament together, so that we can play in the league together. With that insight, we then redid all of our clinics for the January and February timeframe by selecting people, moving them into smaller groups of people of similar levels. All of our clinics are booked now. So just small moments like that where you see a little bit of pain and you just ask yourself why, study a little bit, allows you to adjust and have better programming.
That's a great bit of feedback, because that level-based play, there's an entry level that's very social, but then very quickly people want to play with similar type players who are dealing with similar type issues. So it's a great point. And as you said, it's only a tweak, but that tweak can make a massive difference to registrations.
Totally.
Pat, just from a different angle, with running Fromuth, for example, which has been a staple of the tennis community and now racket sports for forever, how do you go about kind of making Fromuth a home for everything racket sports for these people who are fanatics?
So, Simon, our website URL is still fromuthtennis.com, not Fromuth Racket Sports. And that'll tell you what you need to know about the last 5 years in racket sports, which is the tides have changed and shifted in ways where we're trying to keep up with consumer demand. So kind of aligned with what Jessica's saying, you're hearing user feedback. All of a sudden, pickleball is taking off. Okay, the consumers are driving the demand there, and then all the brands want to start selling pickleball products. And then shoes, right? You can wear tennis shoes on a pickleball court. So that's great. And now we're seeing that with Padel as well, right? That's the pickleball in Europe. It's coming over here. I just heard a stat that there's about going to be 1,000 courts built this year in the United States. So we're seeing this wave, and so we're trying to ride that wave. While tennis, we still sell more rackets than anything else. We know that pickleball and Padel are bringing in new players to racket sports, and we love that. It's a different profile of person, and so I think that's great that the whole rising tides lift all boats saying is what we believe in. So we've been trying to follow that trend. We've changed our name to Fromuth Racket Sports, and we're really trying to be the one-stop shop for these places, whether it's a facility with only tennis and they're maybe putting pickleball lines on their courts now, or a multi-racket sport facility like the USTA National Campus. They're a great example of it. So we're trying to follow the customers in what their demands are.
Okay, shifting gears a little bit to data. And in this day and age, data drives a lot of decisions, or should be anyway. Jesica, prior to going live, you had kind of shared a little bit of a story or how you were using data to make decisions. But we talked about the customer journey or customer mapping and understanding all the touch points that customers have, from starting on your website to booking a court to then walking out the door when they're finished, and how important they are to understand. So could you share a little bit about your thoughts around using data to make decisions and adjusting programming offerings?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that the customer journey mapping is critical for any business, and like especially a service business where your touch points are both going to be digital and physical. I used to be a user researcher for Lyft, and my co-founder was also a data science manager at Lyft as well. So and that's an experience that definitely goes digital to physical also. So it's really interesting how the digital piece can inform your expectations for your in-person piece. But that aside, all of these touch points have a huge impact on people's willingness to frequent your club, to promote your club, and to become a member. So I highly recommend, even if it's just with a whiteboard, just write down what are all of those moments. And then underneath it, do you have access to data to underpin what's happening under those moments? So we look both at quantitative data, things like frequency of attendance, time of attendance, number of players. Sometimes we can get like diversity of number of players, like if it's 8 people, but is it always the same 8 people? Or is it actually often like a constant like shift? That gives you an idea of whether or not people are a little bit more social or they'd rather be with the same people every time. And as you start to look at some of the data that you have across that, you can start to see patterns. And that's all we're really looking for is like, what are the patterns? We like to think about maybe our most successful customers or the people who come the most often. One exercise we did was like, okay, for our super users, what was the first time that they came? How soon was it for their next visit? What type of things were they joining? And we were able to sort of map out this really great journey of first, if you're a brand new person to the sport, starting with an intro to paddle, moving quickly to one of our beginner open plays so you get to meet other people, feel that sense of community, and like test your mettle. Also realize what you don't know and that you need to go back to clinic and learn a little bit more there, and then start moving into gameplay. And so using that, like by looking at where our most successful customers, mapping out that journey, then look back at our schedule. Do we have enough intro to paddles on the schedule? Do we have a beginner social for people to go to? Do we have things that people can rely on so that they can reliably take that journey as well? And we found that we didn't. We're like, oh no, and quickly adjusted the programming for that. The other piece that came out of that too that I think is really helpful, and I highly recommend this for other club owners, is this idea of like a group membership. We did borrow the idea from Bay Club here out in the Bay, which is, we call them squads. So if you join in a group of 5 or more, you actually get 50% off of your membership discount. This is especially good for paddle, probably for pickle too, is because you're now creating these smaller groups they're incentivized to do it because it helps them save money, but also helps them get people to play with. So our membership tripled after introducing squads. And a lot of that was just based on the data that we observed of some of our more successful customers.
It's interesting you say that too, because yesterday when we were chatting, we talked about, I don't know the exact number, but it's 6 to 8 friends that a new member has to have within the first 3 months, or they're highly likely to drop their membership. So
yeah,
that's a great idea there to adopt. Just, you've already created a group of 5 or 6 people, you're off and running. So I like that idea. I might steal it myself. Brad,
I recommend it.
Brad, what would you add in terms of your approach to customer retention? I think you're muted again, Brad.
Sorry. So from a database perspective, long term, we are actually building a data warehouse, because we actually have a couple different pieces of software. We have Play by Point, which runs the club. We have Shopify, which runs the pro shop and online store we're turning on. And then we also have Toast, which runs the food and beverage. So basically, we have 3 different pieces of software. We want a lot of data out of it. So we're actually building a data warehouse in the back end so we can look at those things and understand, and it's also by skill level. And by skill level, it changes so many things. So if I talk about a 4-5 player, that a man that's 15 over, they don't want to play in leagues. They just want to play with their normal group. Whereas if I talk about a woman, female, all age, specifically 50, they want to play in leagues more. And we've already figured that out just by talking to them, or even just looking at our signups for our leagues and events and things like that. So data for us is going to be key for us. And, you can often make mistakes on data, so you have to trust it just so much. But it's important for clubs to know what drives your overall revenue for your business and overall happiness. If you chase all revenue, you may ruin your happiness. There needs to be a balance between people. So right now we're requiring all members get rated. And then we're going to be stopping our membership at growth at certain points, so we can realign our total membership by skill level. So if we're short on certain skill levels, we will bring in more members at that skill level first. It's important we strike that balance between the club. And that's all data driven, just from a basic sense of, do I have the data? Am I looking at it? And am I trying to make educated decisions from it?
And Brad, you've been in business a long time, been successful. You must use data to drive a lot of your decisions, obviously.
Yeah, so from a background, my business of marketing and a background, I sat with all the major retailers and brands, and we looked at data constantly. So, and again, that's why I said trust it, but you can only trust it so much. So for us to scale our business to the level we need to grow our membership base and where we need to retention, it's much harder to win a member than it is to lose a member. So retention is key as well. So, and we're gonna, it's touching people. It's the people who walk in. It's understanding the data points, how many times they are here, how often do they come. If you think about Padel and pickleball are similar but different. A heavy pickleballer could come play pickleball every day of the week, right? A heavy tennis player may play 3 days a week. So you also have to look at your data points when you start bringing in certain skill levels or certain demographics, because otherwise you'll have too many heavy users that fill the club up and you actually will start creating a bad experience. So we've already seen this just from the little data points we've had in 5 weeks.
Brad, one question just came in on this point, Simon. So I'm gonna jump in, but I think it's related to data. And their question is, how are you actually collecting this member data? So is it through survey? Like, what are the means and the vehicles that you're using to collect that? We talked about, conversation, but like the physical nature, like where are we putting it? How are you collecting it? Where are you putting it?
So right now unfortunately, it's in 3 distinct places. When I mentioned data warehouse, it's a fancy way of saying we're actually consolidating all our data to one place. So there's data coming out of each of those tools that we use. And then basically they're going in spreadsheets right now. We're looking at it. Long term, we'll actually have pre-built data, data warehouse that's actually allocating all of that information so we can sort it and look at it and make some assumptions. So most of the tools out there have some sort of data. It's whether, and everybody should always feel free to ask the people from the software that you're using whether they have more data or whether you can get it in a different way. But for years in my marketing past, everybody was obsessed about catching data, but very often did they not use it properly or did they not use it at all? So
just know how to use it.
Yeah, catching data for data's sake is one thing, but there's people out there whose their expertise is, Jessica's background is looking at human behavior, mine's marketing. So we're looking at it in a different way. But sometimes you're also so close to your own product that you can't see the forest for the trees. And I think that's so important in our business, because I believe the data is something, someone else needs to look at it and look at it a different way. But that's a long answer again, but the data should be in the tools you're using. And if it's not, ask the person. And if you can't get the data, then you may need to switch tools long term. But don't obsess over getting all the data. Sometimes the data is just old school clipboard, old school questionnaires. And then your data could just be writing something down every day when there's a problem, and you start seeing that's a consistent problem. That's a data point. It doesn't have to be always fancy digital data points.
Yeah. Just to add on to Brad's point, like a CSV export from whatever you're using for your booking tool is almost always available. No Play-by-Point definitely has that. And then you can use ChatGPT. If you're not that familiar with doing like data analysis, ChatGPT will help you do it, or any of these other AI things.
So let's move on to branding a little bit. Pat, where does that fit into this third place idea, and how does it create a stronger connection to a facility and build a sense of pride in a rackets community?
From the retail perspective, because that's where we sit, people want to buy stuff at your retail store that says that they played at your club, that they're a member at your club. Look at Brad's shirt. That's a great looking logo, right? He's a walking billboard. Now he has to be because it's his place, but it's great if you can have the members also be walking billboards. And so we do a lot of custom embroidery. That is the number one thing we see our shops selling is a shirt or a polo or a sweatshirt or a hat with their logo on it. And so people that are members are proud to wear it. They want to tell other people. And it's also got a coolness factor. We live in this like generation now where you want to post on social and you want to be like, hey, I played here, or I'm a member here. And so that's a big piece of it, Simon.
Jessica, anything to add to that?
Oh, brand is so important. Also wearing our brand. You'll also notice this is like a picture of our lounge. We do a lot of green. Green is everywhere. The brand is Park Paddle. We try to bring like the outdoors, indoors here, like everything, both from like the color and having plants. We have like eucalyptus towels that you can like use after you have a particularly sweaty game that also should evoke like trees. We also use a signature scent in our bathrooms, which is a lot more accessible than you think. Feel free to follow up with me if you need help finding a good scent for your club. Um, but all of those things kind of like factor into these like brand moments and elements, not only just taking advantage of really great clothing and really great embroidery. Pat, I'm gonna have to follow up with you on that. People do love, and to Brad's point earlier too, people do love to do the pro shop as they walk out. I learned that also. Sometimes it's on the way in, it's more about demos. Maybe can I try something out? But on the walk out, it's I want to buy something. I want to bring a piece of this brand with me. So making sure you have something there for them for that. But yes, across all different elements, smell, feel, clothing, trying to make sure that the brand like stays alive for people.
And Brad, what are you seeing at the fort in terms of branding?
Yes, so we actually have a scent in the shop. So when you first walk in, you get a smell. And Jessica, I love that you said that because I was like, we need our smell. So when you walk in our place, there's a smell, and people have asked, how can I get that from my house? I'm like, well, you'll never feel like you're not here. Then that's great. Let's do it. But for us, our logo and our branding is important, and we spent a lot of time on it to make sure we got it right where people did want to wear it. Before we opened, I have ADD, and I'm not going to lie, and I like to have a lot of options in my life. So we made 260 different hats. Now, we had 70 designs with different colorways. And then we had 60 graphic t-shirt designs we made as well before we even got onto our normal logo shirts. And the reason why we made so many was, one, I have a problem, and two, was because we really wanted to understand what people like, because pickleball is such a wide demographic, people from all different places around the country, people that are here as locals. There's all different skill levels, all different age levels, what kind of clothing do they wear, all that stuff. So we went wide at first, and we tried to figure out what people like. And what we're finding there's some consistencies. At the same time, we're realizing that it's also a terrible amount of SKUs to manage as well. So I'm going to try to simplify that next round through. But the brand is everything. When I look at my pro shop sales every day, the brand of merchandise is a significant portion of it. Then we have shoes, paddles, all of that stuff as well. We also have product that we sell. So the brand is everything. It's also your brand recognition. So, how do you do your marketing? They have to be able to spot your brand pretty quickly. And then, it's like anything. It's Nike, it's Under Armour, it's all these brands. Like, you recognized our logo. So we're never going to be those guys, but we're happy to be that for our club. I think everybody should be thinking about it. And also, just because you think it's really cool doesn't mean other people think it's really cool either. So I can show you endless amounts of logos and names of our business that we had, everything. Don't rush it. And it's funny, naming something often can take longer than actually making it. So put as much effort in there in the name and the logo as it did in the idea of building the place.
And then Brad,
I want to just jump in. Oh, sorry, Pat, go ahead.
I was just saying, he's going to take the data for who buys what shirts at what level. He's going to match that up, and then it's going to make him more efficient.
All 4.5s are wearing t-shirts with front pocket logos. What it
promise
is.
You,
yeah.
We actually built a heat map already of what we assumed versus the reality. And people often think that you want to go after a 3-3-5 player because they're going to do more lessons, more clinics. They're here, they're hanging out, having fun. But the reality is, a higher skill level player also burns through their shoes faster. A higher skill level player goes through their paddles faster. So you really need to be looking at your demographic by age, by skill, and all that stuff to understand where you need to target them with. So you get me excited now. We can start talking about that. But our email blast will go to specific people based upon their demographic, right? So we know they're a 4-0 player, they're a heavy hitter. We know how often they're going to burn through their paddles and their shoes. So we'll market to them appropriately in that time frame is how we're looking at the business. Now, we're not there yet, but we're building data now, so we could do that in more than a month from now. So, but yeah, I get excited with that.
Robyn, did you have a question or a point?
I just wanted to chime in on my brand is I love it. I think it is the central part of the entire journey that we talked about. In someone navigating whether or not they want to interact with you from the early stages of a look and feel. But you all mentioned like the on-site, like the ethos of who you are and what you're trying to exude is the type of people that will keep coming, and those things are all important in the brand building process. I think you mentioned so many things, a little, Easter eggs along this webinar of that point toward it's so important to develop that brand from the beginning and execute it in all 360-degree view of it. So I wanted to kind of tie that all back together.
And I think if I can add to that, the key is don't copy someone else. Be the brand that you are. Because if you're building, let's say, a 9-court facility indoors in a certain part of the country, be who you are to that local community. Embrace that local community with that brand. Don't try to be something you're not, because it'll never be believed and it'll fall flat. And I think that's key. We had so many different names. In the end, we're Fort Lauderdale, and it was right in front of our face. We called it the Fort, and it literally was right in front of our face. So, and in the end, we have to embrace who you are, what you are, where you're at, to make sure your brand is believable. And that's from what the product you sell to your messaging. Make sure it's on brand to your demographic of people that like you. And I hate to say it, don't always believe your own BS. You got to second guess yourself, because you got to get feedback from everybody on the outside.
Totally. Oh man, we went through so many names. My partner was pretty trigger happy with buying domains too, so we were
I was too.
Yeah, we had like 4 different email addresses before we finally landed on our name.
So
we
Brad,
did the same thing.
Yeah.
That's Simon.
So Brad, we've built the place. The members are coming. How do you keep them connected, not just to the facility, but to other people? We talked about the importance of connection. Jesica talked about the squads with the 5 friends joining. How do you keep them connected, and do you need to understand customer behaviors to get that right?
So it's important that we don't become what you have at the park, because the park is its own culture. At the same time, you have to keep a little bit of the park as well, because that's an important part of the culture in the sport. So you have to have a little bit of everything. So what we're doing right now, and again, just a few short weeks, we figured it out a little bit, and I'll call Jesica after this in the future, and she has no idea she's going to get me calling her. But we've learned that for someone who's never played pickleball before, they're afraid to go to the park because it's full, it's intimidating. So how we're addressing them is if we just give them a free clinic, it's one and done. What we found already is that people want to come multiple times and learn over a period of time, and at the same time graduate with all their friends, and then they start their own WhatsApp group. So we're trying to create these pods, like we were saying before. I forget the name you had, Jessica. We had like 5 to 8 people, whatever. We're trying to create those. And that's important, because if they stay together, then they'll stay in the club together. So it's about engaging them and understanding their needs. Like I said, it's a 50-plus-year-old guy. It's very different than a 28-year-old guy. So that's where the bar comes into play. They want to play and they want to have a drink afterwards. So that's their social connection. So you really have to understand your demographic. If you're all 55-plus community in your club, that's great. But just make sure that you're actually addressing it for that and not making it something it's not.
Brad, there's nothing more intimidating than a Facebook group for a public pickleball facility.
Oh my gosh.
If you've never been there, or if you're not ingrained, it's intimidating. Yeah, honestly, it's intimidating every day you go. Like, what's interesting is in this sport, the female percentage is lower than tennis proportion, and I'm focusing our club here heavy on women for many different reasons, but it's intimidating. It's easier for a woman to get into tennis than it is into pickleball, because you go to a court, let's say a hockey rink that's got 6 courts, and I hate to say it, men are men, right? So they're not going to be as open to you coming and playing there, and it's intimidating. So women are coming to us right now that are, let's say, 45, and they're saying, listen, when I go play with the 60, I lied. I went into the 50-plus group at the JCC to play with them. Those women are intimidating me. They don't want me there. So they're trying to find a place to play. So if you can take intimidation out of the sport, because everybody thinks the sport is about this, everybody getting better and better and better. We've already found that people have said to us, I don't want to get better. I'm happy at a 3-5. I just want to have fun. So you have to accept that and provide that experience. So what we've done is we've split our club in half. And in April, we're turning it on this way. The lower skilled players are on one side of the club. The higher skilled players are on the other side of the club. So this way you can have fun when you want to have fun, and you can yell and scream on the other side. So it's about taking that intimidation out of the day-to-day flow and letting people in there, because it is intimidating. I remember when I was playing, I love it now because I play against people that I was intimidated by back when. So I pat myself on the back that I can hold my own now. But it also at times made me not want to play the sport because it was very intimidating.
Jesica, what's working for you in this space, in the keeping people connected?
Keeping people connected, man. Yeah, I think what the best way of keeping people connected is where I don't have to do it. It's, I have found so funny that there's a few groups that I've tried to like create for people, which I do. I encourage people. I introduce them to each other. I have them exchange their phone numbers, and they want to create their own little WhatsApp groups that maybe Jessica is not in, and that's okay. Um, and so with that, it's mostly just small nudges. Like after a game, I'll be like, "That what you have like some excellent Vuporez. Mateo is really good at the back wall. You guys should play together. Do you guys have each other's phone numbers?" And it's just small nudges like that. I see you. I recognize your game, and I'm gonna alley oop you. And I hope you guys become friends. And it's doing that constantly. It's also having our staff doing that constantly. So not only, like I said earlier, our staff will play games with people. I also encourage them to go over there and watch people's games as they're playing. Get an idea of like what are they working on, what's going well for them. Also, who else do you think they should be playing with, and nudging them to do that.
All right, guys, we are getting towards the end of our time here, but what I'd love for each of you to do is just leave everybody who's listening with one key takeaway you'd like them to end the session with. So something that you think was really paramount to this third place creation. So I'm going to start with you, Pat.
Okay, put me on the spot here, Simon. I think what's great about racket sports industry in general is the two sports clubs that these two are representing here with their clubs, and what we're seeing is the renaissance. Tennis clubs aren't popping up right now like pickleball and paddle clubs are, and so it's great because we're bringing people together, we're building communities. It's all around racket sports competitions, which is awesome. So I love what's happening there, and I think to steal from Brad a little bit, like these places, these clubs that are popping up and even reinvigorating themselves, they need to be authentic. They need to be who they are, because the members or the guests even, they're not stupid. They can see right through if it's a very shallow experience. They want to feel like they belong and there's a sense of community. So I think that's the biggest takeaway. I'll pass it to Jessica.
Is that passing it to me?
Yes.
Yes, please. Yes.
Oh, yeah. So much good stuff today. I think I left a couple of specific tidbits, but like I think just as like a frame of reference and thinking about this is like when I think about having a club and creating this third space, like you're hosting a dinner party. Like you want people to feel comfortable, connected, that they can meet each other, they have something to talk about, something to connect over. And if you give yourself this metaphor, you'll start to see all the other little pieces, everything from your pro shop to the digital way that you show up as a brand, start to fall into place. So just throw a really great dinner party.
All right, Brad, the stage is yours. No pressure, but you have to finish with a bang here.
Boom. See ya. No. I think two things. Programming. You guys, everyone's going to live and die on programming, and I've seen that already. So that's something to think about, especially in pickleball, and especially if you have a lot of courts. You have to bring people there for the right reasons, and you think they're going to want to come for something. Like, give you an idea, cardio pickleball. That sold out the other morning. I put it on the app, and it sold out in 10 minutes, just to give you an idea. I could put on something else. It didn't fill up as fast. So, but anyway, that's one thing. But again, keeping it real to who you are and understanding who you are as a club is the most important thing. And at the same time, listen to what everybody's saying, enough to hear it, but not take all of it in the face, because people are always going to have comments if you let them have it. And understand what separates you from being a park. Padel is very different because there's very few public courts. Pickleball, someone can go up the street and play for free. They can put a net up in their front yard and play for free. So in the end, what are you providing? And so for us, we've been open for 5 weeks, and our members are saying, we see that bar, when's it open? We see the restaurant, when is it opening? When are you going to have mixers? When are you going to have money ball? They want to have the social elements, because they're all happy to play pickleball. They want to learn and get better, but some of them just want to have fun. So as a club, I have to say, guys, if you are just a high level play club, be the best high level club you can be. But if you are about a place that's providing an experience as that third place, you have to make sure you're providing a true, real third place. If it's just playing, fine, that's a third place. But if it's a third place where we want people to hang out afterwards, give them the reason to, and hear what they're saying and deliver on it.
Thank you all. So this was, I think there are so many nuggets that we're going to get soundbited. So I hope you all are prepared for some social media from us. There's so many good takeaways and nuggets here for everyone. A couple that I love the idea of building brands. I think events actually and what we do are fairly similar in the challenges and how we're building the anatomy of an experience to clubs, which is I think why I'm so personally fascinated by all of this. For me, personalization is key. Understanding your demographic, regardless of where the region is and the types of folks, is super important to creating that community stickiness. A clear brand voice. I love brand. Clear brand voice and clear identity on who you are and how to put that into play. And data is so important. And I hope the more money that's going into our industry, into clubs, the better our growth rates become. But we want to make sure that people who are building facilities are doing it in the 2025 and beyond way of doing it, and really thinking about the human-centered experience behind this. So it's giving me tons of ideas for content and workshops beyond this. I'm so appreciative, Simon, Jessica, Brad, Pat. Can't wait to see all of you in a few weeks. Plug in Miami Beach, March 22nd to the 24th. Miami Beach Convention Center, RacquetX, theracquetx.com. Y'all are awesome. Thank you, and have a great rest of your Thursday.
Thanks, everybody.